So this happened back in 2016, when I just moved to Fairpoint, Oregon after a messy breakup and figured, why not give online dating a shot? I wasn't looking for anything too serious, just, someone to talk to, maybe grab a drink with. So I downloaded Tinder and started swiping through the usual mix of shirtless gym selfies, fish-holding guys, and dudes with dogs that were definitely not theirs. And then I saw him, Daniel. He looked like he'd walked out of a cologne ad. Like, actually stunning. Tall, clean-cut, with this perfect stubble and ocean eyes kind of vibe. One of his pics had him in what looked like a lab, which matched his profile. Said he was an engineer. That made him seem even more legit. I honestly thought he might have been modeling on the side or something. I swiped right instantly. We matched. Of course we did. We started chatting pretty quickly and he had that whole confident but chill thing going. Like, just enough charisma to keep me smiling, but not so much that it felt fake. I was into it. Within a couple days, we decided to meet up for drinks at this spot downtown I'd been meaning to try anyway. So win-win. I spent way too long getting ready. Straightened my hair, picked out this killer jumpsuit, even put on heels, which I kind of regret because I never wear heels and they killed my feet. But I figured, if I'm meeting a guy who looks like he just stepped off a runway, I gotta bring my A game, right? I got to the bar a little early, found a booth near the back, and started casually scanning the place. That's when this guy waved at me from the far side. I froze for a sec because, nope, that was not Daniel. This dude looked like someone completely different. Like, not just older or had a weird angle in his pics. Different, but straight up you used another man's face kind of different. But he was waving and smiling. So I kind of awkwardly waved back and made my way over, thinking, maybe he's Daniel's friend or something? But nope. He stood up, extended a hand and went, "Hey, I'm Daniel." Just like that. Like nothing was off. I didn't even know what to say. I sat down mostly because I was in shock. The pictures he'd used weren't even remotely close to what he actually looked like. We're talking different jawline, different hair color, completely different build. I mean, it felt like he'd Googled hot engineer and stole someone's LinkedIn photos. I was mad, yeah, but also just disappointed in myself for falling for it. I should have guessed. Guys that look like that don't usually need dating apps, right? But still, I didn't want to make a scene or be outright rude, so I tried to keep the conversation going. It was rough. The guy was trying way too hard, talking about his startup and name-dropping people I'd never heard of like it was supposed to impress me. He cracked jokes that landed like bricks and kept bragging about his car, which, honestly, might not have even existed. I sat there pretending to be interested, but inside I was just counting the minutes until I could bounce. There was this weird unspoken tension sitting between us like a third person at the table. We both knew he'd lied, but neither of us mentioned it. I guess I was waiting for him to fess up, and he was banking on me pretending everything was cool. After about 30 minutes of awkward small talk and me pretending to laugh at his weird car story for the third time, I decided I was done. I looked him in the eye, thanked him for coming out, and said I had to head out. That's when the entire vibe flipped. As soon as I stood up, Daniel got loud, like everyone turns to stare loud. He started ranting, saying I had led him on, that I was just like all the other shallow chicks on Tinder, and how I clearly only cared about looks. I was absolutely stunned. Like, bro, you used fake pics, and I'm the bad guy? I left the bar as fast as I could without looking like I was full-on running, but he wasn't done. He followed me out onto the sidewalk, still yelling, saying I wasted his time, calling me names I'm not even gonna repeat, and acting like I was the villain in this weird little fantasy he'd built up in his head. It got scary, honestly. His voice kept getting louder, his insults nastier. I was glancing around, trying to figure out how far I was from my car and if I could duck into a store or something. He was keeping pace with me like he had a point to prove. I don't scare easy, but in that moment, I was legit terrified. Just when I was pulling my phone out to call the police, this patrol car came rolling around the corner like a gift from the universe. I swear, Daniel saw those flashing lights and turned into an Olympic sprinter. Dude bolted down an alley and was gone within seconds. If they'd shown up even 10 seconds later, I probably would have had to actually talk to the cops. I stood there shaking for a solid minute. Finally pulled myself together, got to my car, and cried for a bit before heading home. That whole night messed with my head. I deleted Tinder that same evening and didn't go near it again for months. It was just so disturbing that someone I'd never even met before could flip like that. Fast forward about 6 months, I re-download Tinder, figuring maybe I'd give it one last shot. And guess who popped up in the first 10 swipes? Yep, same profile, same stolen model pics, same fake job description. Daniel hadn't changed anything, still out there catfishing unsuspecting women like it was his side hustle. I reported the account right away, and it did get taken down. But who knows how many more accounts he's got floating around out there. After that, I made a rule for myself. I always ask for a real-time selfie before meeting anyone now. Just something simple. Hey, can you send a quick pic of you right now so I know who to look for? If they make excuses or act weird about it, I'm out. It's not a perfect system, but at least it gives me a better shot at knowing who I'm actually about to meet. Doesn't stop creeps from being creeps, but it's better than getting blindsided again. I'm 30 now, but this weird little episode happened when I was 29. I'd been messing around on Tinder for a few months, mostly out of boredom, if I'm being honest. And it was the usual mix of ghosting, dead conversations, and profiles that made me question humanity. I'd pretty much given up on it until I got matched with someone named Lacey. Her profile pic wasn't super clear. It looked like it had been taken on a front camera from 2008, but I could still tell she was attractive. Long blonde hair, bright green eyes, kind of an artsy vibe. Her bio was short and sweet, into hiking, fiction books, and exploring new spots to eat. Nothing groundbreaking, but it didn't throw any red flags, and at that point, I was just glad someone had swiped right. We started chatting, and surprisingly, we clicked almost right away. She was funny, sarcastic in a way that matched mine, and we both shared this unhealthy obsession with weird food combinations. She insisted pickles on grilled cheese was elite. Still not convinced. After a few days of pretty steady talking, I suggested we meet up in person. She was totally down and dropped me a pin for a place to meet. Now, this is where I take full responsibility for being a complete idiot. I didn't look up the address beforehand. I figured, whatever, I've got GPS and nothing better to do that weekend. I hopped in my car and just started driving. After about 45 minutes on the road, things started to look off. Like, I was way out past the suburbs, then past the next town, and then it was nothing but flat fields and dusty roads. No restaurants, no gas stations, just a sea of dry corn stalks and the occasional tractor. It felt like I had driven straight into a horror movie. I remember seeing a busted-up scarecrow and thinking, cool, this is how I die. Still, I kept going, thinking maybe it was some hidden farm-to-table kind of place. But then I turned down this long gravel driveway lined with half-dead trees, and at the end of it was this house. Except calling it a house feels generous. It looked like no one had lived there in decades. The windows were covered with warped boards, the siding was peeling off in chunks, and the whole place was surrounded by a chain-link fence that had clearly lost its war with rust. As soon as I pulled up, My stomach dropped. I just sat there in the car staring at the place like, nope, this is a trap. This is how people end up on Netflix documentaries. My palms started sweating, and I swear I could feel my heart trying to climb out of my chest. I didn't see anyone, didn't hear anything, but everything in me was screaming to get out of there. So I threw the car into reverse and peeled the hell out of that place. I had no idea if Lacey was even a real person at that point, but I wasn't about to stick around to find out. That place looked like the final scene of a slasher flick, and I wasn't trying to become a plot twist. As I started heading back toward Westport, I noticed headlights pop up in my rear view, too close for comfort. At first, I figured it was just another car taking the same back road, but then it started getting weird. Real weird. Whoever it was started tailgating me hard, flashing their brights and laying on the horn. I sped up, but they stayed glued to my bumper. Then, and I swear I'm not exaggerating, they rammed into the back of my car. Just a little tap, but enough to make me jolt and nearly veer off into a ditch. My brain was scrambling. I didn't know if it was some kind of prank, road rage, or worse. I just knew I had to keep driving. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just kept gunning it toward the city. The car stuck with me the whole way, until I hit the Westport sign. The second I passed the edge of town, the car slammed on the brakes, spun around, and took off the other direction like it never happened. I pulled over the first chance I got, just past a used car lot. My hands were shaking like crazy, and I could feel my pulse in my throat. I didn't want to go home right away in case they were still watching me or something, so I drove around town aimlessly for about 30 minutes. Ended up parked behind a Shell station, trying to piece together what the hell just happened. That's when I pulled out my phone and opened Tinder to message Lacey. But her entire profile was gone. Like, poof. No trace of her. No chat history. Nothing. My stomach dropped. I sat there staring at my screen like a moron, still half hoping it was just a glitch or she accidentally unmatched me. But nah. Deep down, I knew. I'd been baited. The whole thing was fake. The girl, the convo, the flirty banter, even the stupid grilled cheese talk. All of it was some messed up trap. I kept thinking, why me? Like, who goes to this much effort to lure someone out to the middle of freaking nowhere? And who the hell was in that car? What would have happened if I actually got out of my car at that house? The more I sat with it, the more it messed with my head. I felt lucky, yeah, but also totally wrecked. I'd finally gotten a match after months of nothing, and it turned out to be some psycho game. My confidence took a nosedive after that. The whole thing made me feel like garbage, like I was some easy target, desperate enough to fall for a sketchy date with a blurry profile pic and a vague bio. After that night, I deleted Tinder for good. No dramatic, I'm never dating again speech or anything. I just couldn't trust it anymore. Not worth ending up in a ditch or worse. Back when I was 26, doing my second year in a biomedical research program at a uni in Boise, I hit this really low stretch. Most of my friends had moved away or gotten busy with their own lives, and I was spending way too many weekends just watching random TikToks and overthinking everything. So I figured, why not try Tinder? I wasn't even necessarily looking for a relationship, just someone to talk to, maybe hang out with. After a few super boring swipes, you know the type, gym selfies and one-word bios, I matched with this guy named Leo. His profile actually had full sentences, which sadly felt rare. He even listed his favorite podcasts and what kind of dog he wanted someday. He messaged me first, and we clicked right away. After talking for a few days, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said sure. I figured, best case I meet someone cool, worst case I get a latte and a weird story. We met up at this cafe near my department building. Kinda cozy, indie vibe. We chatted for a while, and honestly, he was nice, polite, nothing weird. But I didn't feel that spark, and I could tell he was way more into me than I was into him. After about an hour, I gently told him I didn't think we were a match. I hate when people just vanish with no explanation, so I wanted to at least give him a little closure. He looked a bit bummed but didn't argue or get weird about it. No yelling, no passive-aggressive comments. Honestly, I thought, hey, that went better than expected. But then, right before we said goodbye, there was this strange shift in his expression. It was like this flicker of something, hard to describe. At the time, I brushed it off as just disappointment, but thinking back, yeah, it gives me the creeps. The first few days after that were uneventful. No texts, no sudden DMs. I figured he'd moved on. But then I started noticing him on campus more often. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence. Maybe we had overlapping routes or classes in the same buildings. But after the fourth or fifth random encounter, I realized he always seemed to be just there, in places I didn't usually see him before. Lingering. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I ignored it for a while. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was nothing. But one afternoon, I was working on a paper at home. My desk is right by this big window facing the street. It was super quiet. Just me, my laptop, and a half-eaten bag of trail mix. I caught something move in the corner of my eye. I turned my head, thinking it might be a bird or something. It wasn't. It was Leo, standing outside, watching me through the window. I freaked out and called the cops right away. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. A couple officers showed up pretty quickly, talked to Leo, and then pulled me aside. Apparently, he told them he just happened to be walking past. He claimed he was out for a stroll and didn't even notice the window. Which, okay, technically possible. The building faces a semi-busy road. But come on. He was standing there, not moving, just staring. Still, they said there wasn't much they could do since he wasn't trespassing and technically hadn't done anything illegal. I was furious but tried to keep it together. After they left, I just sat on my bed, heart pounding, blinds shut tight. I didn't even want to look outside again. After that day, I started getting paranoid as hell. I kept catching myself checking the windows or freezing up every time I heard footsteps in the hallway. Even in my own apartment, I didn't feel safe anymore. It was like this constant tension, like I was being watched, even when I knew I was alone. Walking to class turned into a full-on anxiety test. I started timing my exits, leaving through different doors, wearing hats. Just weird little things to try to throw him off, if he was really following me. Which, yeah, he was. One morning, I was cutting through the plaza to get to my 10 a.m. lecture, and I spotted him across the street, matching my pace. I tried to speed up and duck into a crowd of students. For a second, I thought I lost him. But when I looked over my shoulder, he was still there. Closer this time. Something in me snapped. I spun around and just blurted, "What the hell do you want?" He blinked at me like he didn't expect me to say anything. "I just wanted to talk," he said. I didn't hold back. I don't want anything to do with you. Stop following me." He didn't argue, didn't apologize either. Just stood there, quiet. But I could see in his face that he wasn't done, that this wasn't going to stop just because I asked. After that, I started carrying pepper spray in my backpack, in my coat pocket, everywhere. I signed up for a beginner self-defense class at the gym on campus. It helped a little mentally, but I still felt like I was walking around with a target on my back. The worst part was feeling alone in it. I told my mom and my older sister what was going on, but they lived back in Wichita, like 9 hours away. They were super supportive, told me to come home, but I didn't want to derail my semester. Plus, part of me was still stubborn. Like, I didn't want this guy to chase me out of my own life. Eventually, after weeks of this slow-burning nightmare, I decided to confront him one last time. I caught him near the library entrance and didn't give him a chance to talk. I told him flat out that if I saw him near me again, I was calling the police and filing a restraining order. My voice was shaking, but I meant every word. Something must have clicked, because after that, he finally disappeared. No more sightings, no weird vibes, just gone. I kept my guard up for a while, but slowly, I started feeling like myself again. Like I could breathe without constantly looking over my shoulder. Years have gone by now, and honestly, I still think about it more than I should. I got lucky. A lot of people in similar situations don't. That feeling of being hunted, it stays with you. It changes how you move through the world. I was 27 the first time I gave Tinder a shot. Honestly, I thought it would be a quick experiment, but yeah, that wasn't the last time I used it. Within a few days, my inbox was blowing up. One of the first guys who stood out was this dude named Miles. His messages were funny without trying too hard, and he actually had something to say, which, if you've been on Tinder, you know is rare. He was tall, built like a guy who casually hits the gym but doesn't talk about it non-stop, had a buzz cut, and this ridiculously bright smile that made you feel like he was always in on a joke. We planned to meet up for drinks at this bar downtown in Lakemont, where I'd just moved a few months earlier. I was a little jittery when I showed up. First dates with strangers will do that. But he immediately put me at ease. Friendly, warm, easy to talk to. We ordered some cocktails and chatted for a while. Swapped stories about growing up, weird Tinder dates, and family drama. The vibe was good. Not electric, but comfortable. Then things went sideways. We left the bar just before 10, walking down Millstone Avenue toward the train station, when this random guy jumped out from behind a dumpster and shouted at us to hand over our wallets and phones. He had a knife. Not huge, but still. A knife is a knife. I totally froze. Like, legit couldn't move or think. But Miles? Dude didn't hesitate. He shifted in front of me like he'd done it 100 times before, raised his fists and got ready to fight. The guy lunged, and Miles dodged like he'd seen it coming. He grabbed the dude by the arm and slammed him to the ground. I just stood there with my heart in my throat while the guy scrambled up and bolted down the alley without even looking back. I immediately said we needed to call the cops. I got a clear look at the guy. Late 20s, patchy chin scruff, greasy red baseball cap, super specific. But Miles brushed it off, said there was no need, that it was handled. He wasn't mean about it, just very insistent. I didn't want to argue too hard, so I let it drop. Still, the whole thing shook me up. And yeah, Miles definitely earned some hero points. He reacted fast, no fear, just handled it. I was thankful, but weirdly, I didn't feel any romantic spark with him. I kept that to myself though. He walked me most of the way back to my apartment. I stopped him a couple blocks before I got there. Old habit. I don't like anyone knowing exactly where I live after just one date. He kind of lingered at the corner, like he was hoping for an invite up, but I played it cool and said I was tired. He got the hint. Didn't hear from him for a few days after that, so I figured that was that. But then, out of nowhere, I got a text from him asking if I wanted to go out again. I messaged him back and let him down as gently as I could. Told him I appreciated the night and what he did, but I just wasn't feeling that kind of connection. Figured that would be it. Adults, right? Yeah. No. Miles did not take it well. At all. The first reply was passive-aggressive, and then the next one was just straight-up nasty. Like full-on unhinged vibes. I'm not gonna repeat the exact stuff he sent, but it went from weirdly bitter to low-key threatening real fast. I tried responding once, just to be respectful. Said I was being honest and didn't mean to lead him on. He wasn't having it. The dude acted like I owed him something because he stepped in during that mugging. I remember sitting in my apartment, constantly checking out the window because I had this sick feeling he might just pop up. He knew the area I lived in, even though I didn't give him my address. I kept trying to ignore the texts, hoping he'd get bored and leave me alone. But they got worse before they got better. I ended up turning my phone off for a bit just to breathe. Eventually, after like 4 or 5 days of that nonsense, it just stopped. No more messages, no calls. It was like he disappeared off the face of the earth. I didn't know what to make of it. I mean, this guy was 31. You'd think by that age, rejection wouldn't be some huge emotional landslide, right? But whatever. I was beyond relieved. And for a few weeks, things felt back to normal. Then one random Saturday, I was walking over to this little corner coffee shop near Riverview Plaza. The weather was warm, and there were people everywhere. I was halfway down Magnolia Street when I spotted him. Miles, coming right toward me on the same sidewalk, with another guy beside him. They were deep in conversation and didn't notice me. My stomach dropped. I panicked a little and ducked behind a parked van and kind of crouch-walked behind a brick storefront. I peeked out just to make sure they were still walking, and that's when I saw something that made my blood run cold. The guy with Miles. It was him. The mugger from that night. No question about it. Same face, same weird patchy beard, and that beat-up baseball cap I'll never forget. My brain did this weird pause like it was buffering, and then it clicked. Miles and that guy knew each other. The whole mugging was fake. He'd staged the whole damn thing to look like a hero. That's why he was so chill about not calling the cops. That's why he gave me that whole handled speech. I remember my hands shaking as I watched them disappear down the street, laughing like they were just catching up after a game or something. And the crazy part is, I still wonder what his endgame was. Like if we'd started dating for real, was he gonna ghost his little criminal buddy? Or just hope I never ran into him again? Either way, it was all a manipulation. A performance. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my gut. But I'm sure glad I did. When I was 22, doing my undergrad at Portland State, I finally gave in and downloaded Bumble. My roommate kept bragging about all the girls he was meeting, and I figured I was missing out. I spent 3 days swiping with no luck. 0 matches. Right when I was about to delete the app, Ashley messaged me. She said she was studying psychology at University of Oregon. Her profile had 3 photos. One at a beach, one with her dog, and one where she wore a hoodie with no makeup. She looked real. Her smile didn't seem fake like most profiles. We started chatting right away. She asked about what classes I was taking and joked about how her statistics professor looked like a retired magician. I told her I was struggling through a philosophy elective and trying to survive finals. We talked about shows we liked, bad group projects, annoying roommates. She didn't talk like someone trying to impress. It was easy. After 2 days of messages, she brought up meeting in person. I hadn't even suggested it yet. She said she'd be in Portland on Saturday visiting a cousin, and we could meet at Lloyd Center, grab coffee or just walk around, then go to her place to hang out. Said she wanted to show me her favorite dumb horror movie on Netflix. I said yes, obviously. First time anyone from a dating app had actually wanted to meet me. Saturday came. I put on a clean hoodie, grabbed my keys, and headed to Lloyd Center. I parked near the food court entrance and texted her that I was there. She replied fast. "Hey, tiny change in plan. The main entrance to my building is closed for construction. Can you meet me at the back entrance on Maple Street? It's just a few blocks away." I paused for a second. It wasn't that strange, I guess. Construction in Portland happens all the time. Still, I asked her to drop the address just to make sure. She sent it immediately. Google Maps showed it was a 10-minute drive. I figured she probably didn't want to deal with downtown traffic and just came early to her place. Whatever. The area she sent me to wasn't bad, but it wasn't student housing either. Just rows of older 2-story buildings and some warehouses on one side of the street. A few cars parked, no pedestrians. Kinda quiet for a Saturday afternoon. The address led to a beige brick building with a chain-link fence and a narrow alley that went around the back. I drove around slowly and found a short driveway that opened up behind it. A single steel door with no number, next to a green dumpster, was the only entrance I could see. Ashley texted again. "Sorry, running a bit late. Just wait by the back door. I'll be there in like 5. I parked but didn't get out right away. I looked at the building again. No signs, no mailboxes, no names on the door. Just plain walls, sealed windows. The area smelled like wet cardboard and motor oil. There was a broken folding chair tipped over near the dumpster. I turned the car off and stepped out. I stood by the door, scrolling my phone. A delivery van pulled in and backed into a loading bay next building over. Nobody got out. After 3 or 4 minutes, I texted her. "I'm here." No reply. Another 2 minutes passed. I thought about calling, but she just said to wait. I walked around a little to see if maybe I'd missed a second entrance, but there was just that one gray steel door. I checked the lock. No keypad, no buzzer. Just a handle and a little camera stuck to the wall above it, the cheap kind that blinks red. Then I heard footsteps, fast, heavy, like boots on concrete. I turned. A guy came jogging around the corner from the alley. He had a hoodie pulled up and one hand in his jacket pocket. He didn't look at me as he passed, but slowed down near the door, glanced up at the camera, then kept walking. A few seconds later, Ashley texted, "Almost there. Sorry, just getting off the elevator." That's when I started wondering about the building again. If the main entrance was blocked and this was the back way, why was there an elevator working here? I looked up. The building didn't seem big enough to need one. 3 floors at most. And no visible balconies, no lights on inside. It just looked empty. Still no reply to my "I'm here" message. I texted again. "You inside?" She answered, "Yep, coming now." The smiley face felt weird. Every other message she sent had been normal. No emojis. That one stuck out. I waited another 2 minutes. Nobody came. I checked the handle again. Still locked. The camera light above the door blinked twice, then stopped. A door slammed somewhere nearby. Maybe the loading dock across the lot. I turned and checked but didn't see anyone. Then a second message came in from Ashley. "You can come inside if you want. I left it unlocked." But the door was still very much locked when I tried again. The address she gave me didn't look like student housing at all. It was this old office building, the kind with tinted glass windows and a boxy gray exterior. No balconies, no mailboxes, no front lawns. Just a faded sign above the main doors that said something like, Maple Commerce Center, though half the letters were missing. The parking lot was cracked and uneven, with weeds pushing through. Only 2 cars were parked, way in the corner. Both had out-of-state plates. No lights on in any of the windows. I parked near the front entrance and texted her again. "Are you sure this is the place? Doesn't look like apartments?" She replied instantly, "Yep, 3B. Come to the main lobby, elevator works." I just stared at the building. There weren't any apartment numbers listed outside, no directory, nothing residential about it. Through the glass, I could see into the dimly lit lobby, cheap tiles, a few plastic chairs, and what looked like a reception desk with an unplugged monitor. But what really got me was the movement. I saw shadows. Not just 1 or 2, but at least 3 different figures moving around, crossing back and forth past the hallway openings. No voices, just movement, like they were waiting. Ashley had said she lived alone. Just her and her cat. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. Not even one ring. I stayed in my car, engine still off, just watching the front door. The shadows moved again, slower this time. Then one stopped near the entrance. I couldn't see a face, just a figure standing behind the glass, not doing anything, just standing there. Then I heard a door slam from the back of the building. A second later, another one creaked open. Sound carried weird in that empty lot. My hand was already on my keys. Something was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. I wasn't waiting anymore. Male voices started echoing from inside the building. Not shouting, but definitely more than one. They were close. I jumped out of park and turned the key. My hands slipped a little on the wheel. I looked up and saw movement at the side of the building near the service entrance, the same one she'd first told me to go to. 2 men came out, not rushing, but walking straight toward my car, one of them pulling his hood tighter around his face. I threw the car into reverse and backed out so fast my tires screeched. I didn't even care if I hit a curb. The second guy lifted his phone and pointed it at my car as I sped off. Maybe taking a photo. Maybe filming me. I didn't stop to check. The ride home felt like hours. I couldn't stop glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting a car to follow. Nothing did. When I finally parked outside my apartment, my phone buzzed. Ashley's number. "Where did you go? You were being rude." Then, "You need to come back now." Then, "We saw your car. You think this is a game?" Message after message. The tone kept changing. Angry, cold, then mocking. Stuff like, "You're not that smart," and "People like you don't walk away from this." There were more than 10 texts within 30 minutes. I didn't respond. I didn't want to show that I was even reading them. I just blocked the number. Next morning, I went straight to the campus police station. I showed them the messages, the address, everything. One of the officers didn't even look surprised. He said this was happening more and more in college towns. Fake dating profiles used to lure people to isolated places. Sometimes for robberies, sometimes worse. He didn't say the word kidnapping, but he didn't have to. He asked if I saw weapons. I told him no, but I couldn't be sure what was under their jackets. I asked what they could do. He said they'd flag the number and file a report, but there wasn't much else unless someone got hurt. "Be glad you left when you did," was all he said before I walked out. That night, I sat down and reverse searched the pictures Ashley had used. I found them in less than 5 minutes. They belonged to a girl from California. Real name, real account, last post from 2019. All the same photos I'd seen on Bumble. She had no idea someone was using her face to bait strangers in another state. I sent her a message explaining what happened, just in case. I deleted Bumble that night. Deleted all my old texts too. Just wiped it all. The feeling stayed though. Like I'd been walking into something that wasn't meant to scare me. It was meant to trap me. And it almost worked. Now, I don't meet people from apps. I stick to people I meet in person, through class or mutual friends. People who have something to lose if they lie. The one thing I keep thinking about is how close I came to opening that door. 5 more minutes. Just 5. If I hadn't noticed the shadows or thought twice about the building, I might have stepped inside. And I don't think I'd be writing this now if I had. It happened last summer when I had just moved to Denver for a new job and was getting into online dating for the first time. I didn't know many people in the city, so Tinder felt like the easiest way to meet someone. That's where I matched with Christina. Her profile was simple. Pictures of her hiking, a couple at work in scrubs, one holding a coffee outside a hospital entrance. She said she was a nurse, liked dogs, and hated cilantro. We texted on and off for about a week. Her replies always came during breaks or after late shifts. Nothing seemed off. She was friendly, a little dry, and didn't use emojis much. I like that. One night she suggested we meet in person. She offered Murphy's sports bar downtown, said it was halfway between where we lived. I'd been there once or twice after work, and it always felt safe and casual. No pressure. She told me she'd get there early to grab a table, and that she'd be wearing a red sweater. I told her I'd see her at 7. That day, I left my apartment around 6:30 and caught the train down. It was hot out, so the AC inside the bar was a relief when I stepped in. Murphy's wasn't packed, but had a steady stream of people, mostly folks still in business casual, watching baseball on the TVs above the bar, others having dinner. I scanned the tables in the main dining area and the bar. Lots of red shirts, no one who looked like Christina. I checked my phone and saw nothing new. Figured she might be on her way still. I ordered a soda and stood near the high tables by the bar, looking around every few minutes. 10 minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. It was Christina. She said, "I'm here. Sitting outside on the patio. Too loud inside, LOL." I picked up my drink and walked through the restaurant toward the back patio area. It wasn't big, just 6 or 7 metal tables, most of them full. A group of guys were laughing loudly near the corner, and a couple was deep in conversation by the railing. I didn't see anyone in a red sweater or anyone sitting alone. I slowly circled the tables, pretending to look at the chalkboard specials on the wall, trying not to look too confused. I texted her, "I don't see you. Are you on the left or right side?" She replied instantly. Came around back by the employee entrance. Patio's too loud and packed. Meet me by the staff door? It's near the kitchen. Easier to talk. It felt a bit strange, but not enough to raise alarms. Maybe she just didn't want to sit near a loud group on a first date. I'd been on a few awkward ones before where the noise made everything worse. I turned back toward the bar and stopped a passing server. I asked him if there was a staff exit near the kitchen. He looked a little puzzled, then pointed toward a hallway past the restrooms. "Down there," he said. "Metal door at the end. It's usually locked though." I walked past the bathroom doors and followed the narrow hallway lined with black and white framed photos of the bar from the 80s. At the end, there was a gray metal door with a push bar. "Staff only" was printed in faded red letters. I pushed it open and stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind me, and I found myself in a short concrete alleyway about 10 feet wide. To the left was a dumpster, and ahead was a chain-link gate leading back toward the parking lot. On the right, the wall of the restaurant stretched on. No Christina. I looked around, waiting for someone to wave or approach. Nothing. I texted again. "Hey, I'm out back. Don't see you." No reply this time. I waited about 30 seconds, then looked around again. A few feet away was another door, this one unlabeled and slightly ajar. I stepped toward it and gently knocked. Nothing. I sent another text. "You close? Just want to make sure I'm in the right place." Still no response. I stood there holding my soda, now sweating a little from the heat and from being suddenly unsure of what was going on. The alley was quiet, just the distant hum of cars from the main road. I glanced down at my phone and saw that the message had been delivered. I was starting to feel uncomfortable, like I was in a place I wasn't supposed to be. Just then, the other door opened slightly wider, making a soft creaking sound. I instinctively took a step back, but no one came out. Instead of a patio area, I found myself in what looked like an empty employee parking lot behind the building. The ground was cracked and uneven, and the air smelled like trash and grease from the nearby dumpster. The metal door slammed shut behind me, echoing loudly against the concrete walls. I turned around and grabbed the handle, but there wasn't one. It only opened from the inside. I was locked out. The place was dead silent. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of a highway somewhere in the distance. A single overhead light buzzed and flickered above the dumpster, casting long shadows across the lot. My phone was still in my hand. I tried texting Christina again. "Hey, I'm out here. Where are you?" But the message wouldn't send. The bubble just sat there, spinning. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. That's when I noticed the gray pickup truck. It was parked at the far edge of the lot, tucked between a concrete barrier and a row of dead weeds. The headlights were on. The engine was running. I hadn't noticed it when I first stepped outside. My eyes must have still been adjusting. The truck's lights lit up a wide part of the asphalt, and I saw the driver door swing open. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. His baseball cap was pulled down low, hiding his face. He didn't say anything, just closed the truck door and started walking straight toward me. I didn't wait to ask questions. I turned and ran. Not toward the truck, not toward the dumpster, just back toward the front of the building, along the edge of the lot. The guy behind me picked up his pace, heavy footsteps hitting the pavement. I could hear the crunch of gravel and the squeak of rubber soles gaining behind me. My breath came fast as I rounded the corner of the building and reached the main parking lot. I spotted my car halfway down the row. I kept sprinting, digging into my pocket for my keys. My hands were shaking. I pressed the unlock button, saw the blink of the headlights, and ran straight for the driver's side door. Behind me, I heard the guy round the corner. He was still coming. I yanked open the door, threw myself into the seat, and slammed it shut. The lock clicked. He was maybe 20 feet away now, walking fast, still staring at me. I turned the ignition. The engine roared to life. I threw it into reverse and backed out, never taking my eyes off him. He stopped in the middle of the lot, watching, not running anymore, just standing there like he was waiting to see what I would do. I didn't give him a chance. I peeled out of the lot and didn't stop driving until I got home. Once inside, I deadbolted the door and pulled the blinds shut. My hands were still shaking. I sat down and opened Tinder to check her profile. It was gone. Not just unmatched, completely wiped, like it had never existed. The conversation thread was missing. Her name didn't come up in search. I checked my phone and saw that my last text message was still stuck in sending. I tried calling again. This time, the number didn't go through at all. Next morning, I called Murphy's and asked to speak to the manager. I told him everything. Well, most of it. I said I'd been told to meet someone on the patio, but couldn't find them, and ended up outside by accident. He was quiet for a second, then said, "We don't have a patio. Never have. Just the indoor seating and a couple high tops near the front window." I asked him about the door near the kitchen. He said it should have been locked from the inside. Customers weren't supposed to use it at all. I told him there was a guy waiting out there. He said, "I'll check the cameras and talk to the staff." That shouldn't have happened. I'm sorry. I filed a report later that day. I gave the officer all the details, where it happened, what time, what I remembered about the truck and the guy. I didn't have much to go on. No last name, no social handles, no clear face. Just a fake name, a red sweater she never wore, and a voice in my head saying, "Come out the back." They took it seriously but told me there wasn't much they could do. No real ID to trace, and the app account was deleted. No record left behind. I kept thinking about how simple it was. All it took was a few friendly texts and one small lie. A nurse, a sports bar, a red sweater. Just enough detail to seem real. Just enough to make me walk through that door without thinking twice. Now, I never meet anyone unless I choose the place. I get there early, check all exits, and make sure the building matches the description. I don't trust photos, and I don't chase texts into strange alleyways. Not anymore. When I was 29, living in Austin and working for a mid-sized software firm, I started using Hinge again after a long break. Around the second week of March, I matched with someone named Christina. Her photos were high quality. She was fit, always outdoors, and most shots looked like they were taken at organized events or gym competitions. Her profile said she ran her own business as a personal trainer and nutrition coach. I looked up her name out of curiosity and found what seemed like her Instagram, with more of the same: CrossFit stuff, recipes, seminars, some sponsored content. Nothing seemed off. We messaged back and forth for almost 3 weeks. Christina was always responsive, but not in a fake way. She gave long answers, especially when I asked about workouts or meal prep. She asked good questions too. What time of day I had the most energy, what I ate at work, how I dealt with stress. There was something coach-like in her tone, like she was always collecting data. It didn't bother me. She seemed focused. Toward the end of the 3rd week, she suggested I come over for brunch. She wanted to show off one of her meal plans and said she had just redone her kitchen with open shelving and a custom-built island. I wasn't really the kind of guy to accept invites from people I hadn't met in person, but something about how specific she was, what we'd eat, when to show up, what the vibe would be, made it feel less like a date and more like a scheduled thing. Her house was in a neighborhood called Ridgewood Hills, west of the city. It was a place I knew only from Zillow searches. Big houses, wooded lots, gated driveways. Her address checked out. That Sunday, I left around 10:30 a.m. It was supposed to be a 35-minute drive. I had picked up a small bouquet of tulips on the way, mostly to not show up empty-handed. I figured that'd go with the brunch vibe she described. I was expecting a clean, well-kept house like you'd see in a Pinterest post. But when I pulled onto the road and saw the address, I slowed down and double-checked. The place looked abandoned. The lawn was knee-high in some areas, and the flower beds were covered in dead leaves. The wooden steps to the porch were rotting through in spots, and the railing on the left side was missing entirely. Paint was peeling off the shutters, which looked water-damaged, and the 2 windows facing the street had cardboard taped over broken glass. I parked at the curb and looked again at the address on my phone. I checked the number above the door. It matched. I just sat there for a few seconds. Before I could get out, the front door opened. Christina stepped out barefoot, holding the door open with one hand and waving with the other. She smiled wide and said, "You made it. Come in." Her voice sounded exactly like it had over the phone. It was her, no doubt. But something about her face looked different. Not bad, just tired. She was thinner than in her photos, and her hair was pulled back messily like she'd just gotten out of bed. She wore black leggings and an oversized t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up. I hesitated, then grabbed the flowers and walked up the steps carefully, stepping over a broken plank. Inside, it was colder than I expected. The air smelled faintly of old wood and something else, like raw onions or wet towels. No lights were on, not even in the kitchen, and there were thick curtains drawn over most of the windows. She led me in past the hallway and into the dining area, which had mismatched chairs and a wobbly wooden table covered with brown paper. There was a plate with sliced cucumbers and something that looked like chickpea spread. She motioned for me to sit and said, "Don't mind the mess, I'm doing a thing right now." I asked, "What kind of thing?" Just to break the silence. She smiled again, still cheerful, and said, "I'm trying out a lifestyle change, living without modern tech. No artificial light, no microwave, no phone indoors. Total reset." She pointed to a shelf where her phone sat face down next to a stack of books. I nodded and tried to act cool about it. The house was darker than it should have been, and most of the furniture was worn. There were no electronics in sight, no TV, no speakers, no computer setup. The kitchen had a wood-burning stove and a camp-style coffee press, but no sign of an oven or standard fridge. It looked like the fridge had been pulled out, leaving a gash in the tile. There were mason jars and sacks of grains on open shelves. Some pots had dried herbs hanging from the rims. She noticed me glancing around. "I know it's a lot," she said, "but it helps me focus. And honestly, I sleep better." I just nodded again. She brought out a tray with a carafe of herbal tea and 2 handmade clay mugs. There were eggs and something else I didn't recognize, maybe root vegetables or plant-based sausage. She said everything was grown locally, and she'd prepped it all that morning. I thanked her and tried the food. It was bland, but not bad. I kept eating mostly so I'd have something to do with my hands. At one point, I asked where she worked out. She gave a vague answer about doing bodyweight circuits in her backyard and occasionally dropping into a friend's studio. She didn't mention her business at all, even though she used to post about it nonstop. I asked how that was going and she just said, "Taking a break from that space. It got noisy." I noticed the fridge was outside on the back porch, visible through the kitchen window. It looked unplugged, with the door propped open. Flies buzzed around it. I didn't say anything. I just chewed slower. The only sounds were the ticking of a wall clock and the hum of insects through the open kitchen window. After about 20 minutes, she stood up and said she wanted to show me something funny in the basement. She said it like it was an inside joke I wasn't in on. I laughed politely and followed her past the hallway into a narrow stairwell at the back of the house. Christina led me back to the kitchen with a big grin, like nothing was off. She pulled a small metal pot from a side shelf and placed it on a camping stove that sat on top of what used to be a standard kitchen counter. The surface was covered in tile cracks and burned spots. The flame from the stove flickered high as she stirred eggs in the pot with a metal fork. Next to her was a large wooden bowl filled with fruit, melon chunks, grapes, and something that looked like canned pears. Everything smelled faintly sour. She handed me a ceramic plate and motioned for me to sit down again. As I sat, she launched into a long explanation about how she had unplugged from the electrical grid. Not just turning off her phone, but fully cutting out modern power use. No fridge, no lights, no screens. She called it analog detox. She said her body vibrated at a cleaner frequency now, and that she didn't need digital validation to feel alive. I tried to smile but stayed quiet. She explained that she used to work in corporate marketing and had made good money until she hit a wall. I had migraines for days. I couldn't look at a screen without wanting to scream, she said. That was 6 months ago, and since then, she claimed, she'd been healing, going back to basics, learning to cook from scratch with zero electricity, only using hand tools and rainwater filtration. The air in the house was still damp, and I could feel the chill through the seat. My back was pressed against a wall where the paint was bubbling near the window. I leaned forward slightly and saw a patch of black mold running down into the corner. It smelled faintly of wet paper and mildew. Christina, meanwhile, was watching me chew the food she gave me. She kept tilting her head, like studying me. She asked, "How many hours a day do you think you spend on your phone?" I shrugged. "Probably too many," I said, trying not to sound defensive. She pressed further. "Do you ever feel phantom buzzing? Or reach for your phone when it's not even there?" I nodded slightly. "Yeah, happens sometimes." She smiled wide, like she'd caught me in a lie I hadn't meant to tell. "It's not your fault," she said. "They programmed us that way. But it can be undone." I didn't say anything. I just kept eating the eggs, which were runny and underseasoned. I tried the fruit and immediately regretted it. It had a sour, fermented taste. I set the fork down quietly. "I think you're open," she said softly. "You're not too far gone." I looked at the clock behind her. It was a small analog wall clock with no second hand. The ticking seemed louder than it should have been. "I'm gonna use the bathroom," I said, pushing my chair back carefully. The hallway was even darker than the rest of the house. The bathroom was small and cold, with a cracked mirror and a rust-stained sink. I locked the door and took out my phone. I had 3 missed messages from my manager about a system issue on one of our client portals. I sat down on the closed toilet lid and started typing out a short reply. My thumbs were mid-sentence when I heard the floor creak outside. The door burst open before I could react. Christina stood there, eyes wide, fists clenched. She shouted, "You're doing it right now! You're poisoning yourself!" I stood up quickly and tried to explain. "It's work. It's urgent." She lunged at me, swinging a wooden spoon I hadn't even seen her carrying. It cracked against the wall as I stepped sideways, and she came at me again. "You're addicted. It's like heroin to your brain." I backed up fast, pressing against the far wall of the bathroom. The only way out was the window. I popped the latch and shoved it up. The frame was swollen and stuck, but I forced it open enough to climb through. As I scrambled out, the spoon hit the wall next to me again. I dropped onto the wet ground outside, one foot landing in a patch of mud. My phone was still in my hand. I sprinted for my truck. Behind me, Christina came out barefoot, yelling, "You don't even see what they've done to you!" I unlocked the door and threw myself inside. Just as I started the engine, something smashed into the rear window. I jerked around and saw shards of ceramic flying across the truck bed. Christina stood in the yard holding what was left of a bowl, breathing hard. I didn't wait. I drove off, glass crunching beneath my tires. I didn't go home. I headed straight for a coffee shop on South Lamar that I knew had open seating and reliable Wi-Fi. I sat there with my hoodie up, called a friend of mine who works as a counselor at a wellness center. I told him what happened, trying to keep my voice low. He listened without interrupting, then said something that stuck with me. When someone makes an extreme change and lashes out at others for not matching their new belief system, that's not just lifestyle, it's delusion. It's not about you. I hung up and blocked Christina's number immediately. Then I drove to a small police substation and filed a report. The officer who took my statement raised his eyebrows when I mentioned the address. "We've had a few similar complaints," he said. "Mostly noise disturbances, some vandalism. She keeps to herself, but yeah, sounds about right." He wrote a few things down and told me to call again if she contacted me. I never heard from her again, thankfully. I never cleaned out the broken ceramic from the truck bed. Every time I thought about it, I just pushed it off. I didn't want a reason to remember that morning. I eventually traded the truck in without mentioning the glass to the dealership. What stayed with me most wasn't the yelling or the broken window. It was how normal she seemed, how convincing. Her photos, her messages, even her voice on the phone. You can't always trust how someone presents themselves, especially online. If you ever feel like something's off, don't second guess it. Trust what you see in front of you, and leave the second things stop making sense. When I was 25, I'd been living in Phoenix for a couple years and working remote as a back-end developer. I didn't go out much and hadn't had much luck on dating apps. But then I gave Hinge a shot. That's where I matched with Samantha. Her profile stood out. Like, seriously. Full of high-quality modeling photos, some studio, some outdoors, all looking professional. She said she was a model and also did freelance photography around Phoenix. At first I thought maybe it was a fake profile, but then she started talking about camera models, editing software, and dropping names of small local agencies I'd actually heard of. She mentioned working with boutique fashion brands and even having some photos in regional publications. I Googled a few names she gave me. Small magazines, mostly local. They checked out. We messaged back and forth for a couple days, mostly about creative stuff. Lighting setups, Arizona landscapes, editing styles. It felt easy, like talking to someone who actually knew what they were doing. She said she liked creative people, and even though I wasn't in the arts world, she seemed curious about my job and how programming worked behind the scenes. I told her most of my coworkers were quiet or introverted like me, and she joked that maybe I needed someone chaotic good to balance that out. We didn't flirt much, not at first, but she did suggest we meet up after just 2 days of talking. Said it was easier to get to know someone in person than through endless texts. She proposed we meet at Rosewood Park, which is a small place in a suburb just outside Phoenix. Said it had great stargazing views and some tucked-away photo spots she wanted to show me. The time she suggested caught me off guard, 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. I asked why so late, and she explained she had a shoot during the day that might run long, but she still wanted to meet that night. I looked up the park. It wasn't big, just a couple of trails, a playground, and some open grass areas surrounded by trees. No public restrooms or lights except a single lamppost by the small parking lot. I hesitated, not gonna lie. Meeting someone from a dating app late at night in a mostly empty park. But something about the way she described it felt disarming. She said she hated noisy places like bars and wanted our first meeting to be chill, somewhere we could actually talk without shouting over music. I figured, okay, maybe she's just a quiet introvert like me. Besides, I'd seen her tagged in a couple community posts and local events on Instagram. It seemed legit. She asked to meet by the playground near the entrance, said it'd be easier to find me in the dark there. I agreed, though I told her I might show up a little early just to scope it out. She said cool, just text her when I arrived. That afternoon I worked as usual, didn't mention anything to friends. Around 8:15 I got in my car and drove out. The drive took about 25 minutes. The closer I got, the quieter the roads got. The park entrance was a short turn off a residential street, and the parking lot only had 2 other cars when I pulled in. It was a warm night, dry air with that typical desert breeze. I walked over to the playground, which was mostly sand, a slide, a couple swings, all empty. One of the street lamps flickered a little, but there was enough light to see the path that led deeper into the park. I sent Samantha a text. "Here by the playground." She replied, "Be there in 5. Don't wander off, LOL." I stood around for a bit, scrolled my phone. I noticed one of the parked cars had its windows slightly down. The other was a pickup, looked a little dusty. No big deal, just average suburb stuff. A couple joggers passed by in the distance, heading toward the main trail loop. I didn't see anyone else. The park itself was quiet, just crickets and some rustling in the bushes nearby. There were houses behind the tree line, but no lights on that I could see. 9 o'clock came and went. I waited. At 9:07, she messaged, "Almost there. Walking in from the opposite side. Don't panic if you don't see me right away." I texted back a thumbs up emoji. A few minutes passed, and I kept glancing toward the trailhead she mentioned. I expected her to come from that way, but no one showed. Then, around 9:15, I heard footsteps, not from the path, but from the area behind the playground. It wasn't a paved part of the park, just a strip of dirt and some bushes. I turned toward the sound, expecting maybe she'd come through a shortcut, but no one was there. The sound stopped suddenly, and I figured maybe it was just an animal. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a photo. Samantha had sent a picture of the swing set from behind, taken from maybe 10 feet away. The weird part? I was standing at the swing set, and the photo had been taken seconds ago. I arrived at the park exactly at 9, pulled into the near-empty parking lot, and looked around for Samantha. The area was quiet. A single street lamp near the small path flickered, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. I didn't see anyone near the playground, so I got out of my car and walked slowly toward it, scanning the area. It felt way too empty, like the whole park had shut down for the night. I texted her. "I'm here, by the swings. Where are you?" She replied a minute later. "I'm here too. I'm hiding near the bathrooms. I think I saw my ex's car. He's been following me. Can you come to the restrooms? Far side of the park." I stopped walking and read the message again. The public restrooms were at the far end of the park, past the trails, close to the trees. I hadn't noticed anyone following me on the drive, but I didn't really look either. Her message sounded urgent but not panicked. I could believe it. Stories like that weren't rare. Still, the idea of meeting someone behind a closed building in the dark didn't sit right. I considered just leaving, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. I walked down the paved path, heading toward the restroom building. The route curved between two low hedges and a few benches, none occupied. As I passed the second bench, I heard something to my right, rustling in the bushes. It wasn't the wind. It sounded heavier, like someone trying to stay quiet but stepping on twigs and dry leaves. I stopped walking. The noise paused too. I looked straight ahead. The lights from the restroom building were on. A thin line of yellowish light spilled out from under the door. That didn't make sense. If Samantha was hiding from someone, why would she be standing in a lit building, making herself obvious? I stayed still for a few seconds, then turned around and started walking fast back toward the playground. I didn't hear the footsteps right away, but I felt them. That pull in the air when someone is moving behind you. Then I saw them. Two men stepping out from the trees just ahead on the path. Not running, just walking directly toward me with tight movements. One glanced at the other. No talking. No hesitation. I turned left, off the path and onto the grass, running hard in the direction of the parking lot. I didn't look back at first, just focused on reaching my car. My shoes thudded against the packed ground, loud in the silence of the park. I could hear them now, running behind me, not yelling, not calling out, just chasing. The lot was in sight, my car sitting alone except for the two others I'd seen earlier. I unlocked the door while still running and threw myself inside, slamming it shut and jamming the lock button. One of the men reached the edge of the lot right as I started the engine. He didn't try to follow further, just stood there, breathing hard, watching as I pulled out fast and didn't stop until I hit the main road. I drove straight back to my apartment, checking my mirrors the entire way. No one followed me. I parked inside the complex, rushed upstairs, locked the door, and blocked Samantha's number without reading any new texts. The next morning I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and ran a reverse image search on one of the photos from her Hinge profile. It didn't take long. The pictures came up linked to an Instagram account for a Miami-based influencer. Real name, real brand sponsors, thousands of followers, all posts tagged in Florida. No mention of Phoenix, no mention of photography gigs out west. The whole profile I'd matched with was fake. I sent screenshots to Hinge's support and filled out the reporting form. Then I called the police non-emergency line and told them everything. How I matched with someone, how they lured me to a park, how two guys tried to corner me. The officer who called me back said they'd heard about similar setups before. Sometimes the person actually shows up to gain trust and walk the victim to a location. Other times it's all fake from the start. He said dating apps had become a new tool for local criminals, especially when they could pretend to be someone attractive and trustworthy. I gave them all the screenshots and message logs. They filed it as an attempted robbery, but said without clearer photos or license plates, it'd be tough to pursue. The detective on the phone told me next time, always meet in public places, coffee shops, malls, anywhere with people and cameras. Daytime only, never at night. And if anything seems off, even slightly, walk away. It took a few days to shake the feeling that I'd walked into a trap. I kept replaying it in my head, the moment I got that photo of the swing set, realizing someone was standing right behind me. I'd ignored the signs because I wanted to believe the person was real. Wanted to think someone that interesting actually wanted to meet me. But the truth is, I almost got jumped by two strangers because I trusted a profile picture and a well-written bio. Now, I don't care how normal someone seems online. If the first meeting isn't in public, during daylight, I'm not going. Not ever again. When I was 26, I matched with this girl named Jennifer on Tinder. She stood out right away. Her pictures weren't overly filtered, and her messages were quick-witted and normal. Not over the top, not dry either. We texted on and off for about a week. She said she worked in marketing, liked hiking, and had just gotten back from a trip to Seattle. I liked that she wasn't one of those profiles with 3 group shots and a ton of gym selfies. She actually seemed like a real person. After some back and forth, she suggested meeting in person. She picked the spot, Bella Vista, that Italian place downtown with big windows and a piano in the corner. I was surprised she picked somewhere so decent for a first meetup. Most girls I matched with usually wanted a casual drink or a coffee. I got there right on time, wearing this blue button-down that always gets compliments, tucked into clean jeans. She was already sitting by the window, just like she said she would be. Same face as in the pictures. Long dark hair, plain black dress, silver necklace. She stood up when I walked over and smiled. We shook hands, which I thought was a little formal, but she didn't feel cold or anything. Just calm. She had already ordered sparkling water and offered me a glass. I sat across from her, facing the window. The place was about half full, dim lighting, quiet music. Pretty good atmosphere overall. We started with appetizers. She ordered bruschetta. I got calamari. Conversation flowed at first. She asked what I did for work, and I told her about the job at the warehouse where I handled incoming shipments and managed inventory. It wasn't fancy, but it paid okay and gave me free time. She nodded and said something about liking guys with practical jobs. Then she told me more about her work, mostly client outreach, remote calls, presentations. Sounded dry to me, but she made it seem exciting. She mentioned her boss was a control freak and joked that she'd quit if she won the lottery. Typical stuff. About 20 minutes into dinner, though, I noticed she started checking her phone a lot. Like, not just glancing at notifications, but unlocking it, scrolling, locking it again, then repeating it. At first, I ignored it. Maybe she had work stuff going on, but it was a little odd for a first date. I kept trying to keep the convo going, asking about her travels, movies she liked, anything. She answered everything, but her eyes would flick down to the screen every time it lit up. I finally said something like, "Busy night?" just to joke about it. She looked up quickly and said, "Sorry, just waiting on a friend to text me something." I shrugged and said no worries, but it stuck with me. About 30 minutes in, my own phone buzzed. Unknown number. I glanced at the screen. The message just said, "Come outside now." I frowned and showed it to her with a small laugh. "Weird spam," I said. She leaned over the table to read it. Her expression changed. Subtle, but there. Like her whole posture tightened. "Who do you think that is?" she asked. I shrugged again. "No idea. Maybe a wrong number. Should I go see?" I was half kidding. She stared at my screen a bit longer than made sense. "Could be important. Maybe it's someone you know." "Just go out real quick and check," she said. I chuckled. Why would someone text from an unknown number to meet me out front during dinner? I expected her to laugh with me, but she didn't. She leaned back, watching me carefully. "Could be something urgent," she said. Right after that, another message came through. "This is urgent. Come to the parking lot." I felt a weird chill. Not fear, just unease. I didn't recognize the number. I looked out the window, saw the lot behind the restaurant. Nothing unusual. Some cars. A guy on his phone near the back, headlights flicking on. Jennifer leaned in again, this time with more energy. "You should go. Just check. I'll stay here." Her voice was calm but firm, like she was giving instructions. "Could be your car or something?" I looked down at my food, still hot, untouched. "I really don't think it's anything," I said. She didn't back off. "Just 2 minutes. I'll watch your stuff." Jennifer didn't let up. She leaned in again, tone steady, face calm. "Just go check real quick," she said. "I don't mind waiting. If it's nothing, you'll be back in 2 minutes." She even smiled, like she was trying to be reassuring. I hesitated. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but something about the whole thing was starting to bother me. The messages had kept coming. "Come outside. We're waiting. Don't keep us waiting long." All from the same unknown number. I told her, "All right, I'll just take a quick look, then come right back." She nodded and stood up with me, walking a few steps toward the entrance. "Text me if it's something," she said, still calm, still smiling. I felt weirdly grateful that she wasn't annoyed. She even held the door open a bit as I walked out. I glanced back once. She was standing there, arms crossed, just watching me go. Outside, the night air was cooler than I expected. The parking lot was dim, lit by only 2 flickering poles. I walked past a few parked cars, my own Honda parked way in the back corner, near the dumpsters. I'd parked there to avoid the tight spots near the entrance. As I moved closer, the air felt too still. The noise from the restaurant faded. I could hear my own shoes on the asphalt, echoing in the quiet. About 20 feet from my car, two figures burst out from behind the dumpster. Both wore black hoodies and ski masks. No warning. One of them held something in his hand. I couldn't tell what, but he pointed it straight at me. "Wallet and keys, now!" the first one shouted. The second guy moved fast, cutting me off from the direction I came. I froze for half a second, then turned and sprinted back toward the restaurant. I heard footsteps pounding behind me and someone yell, "Get back here!" My legs were moving faster than they had in years. I didn't look back. I reached the door, yanked it open, and stumbled inside. The waiter glanced up. A couple near the front looked over, startled. I spun around to slam the door shut behind me, chest pounding. I turned toward our table. It was empty. No jacket, no purse, no Jennifer. The chair was pushed in. The glass of water she'd been sipping from was gone. Even her napkin was gone, like she'd never been there. I stood there stunned until the waiter came over. "Is everything okay, sir?" I looked at him, still catching my breath. "Did you see the woman I was with? She was sitting right here. Did she go to the restroom or something?" He glanced at the table. "She left a few minutes ago, right after you stepped outside." "She just left?" He nodded. Didn't say anything. Didn't pay either. I blinked. "She didn't pay?" "No. Just walked out." I pulled out my phone, opened our texts, tried calling her. The call didn't go through, immediately went to voicemail. I sent a message. "Where did you go? What's going on?" A red warning popped up under it. Message not delivered. I opened Tinder. Her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Deleted. Like she'd never existed on the app. I went to my recent matches. Nothing. No Jennifer, no trace. I sat down at the edge of the table. My hands were shaking. The waiter stood nearby, clearly unsure if he should step away or not. I muttered, "I think I just got set up." My car was still out there. So were the guys. I didn't want to go back outside. Then I remembered my key fob had a panic button. I pulled it out and pressed it. A second later, the faint sound of my car alarm echoed through the lot. Horn blaring, lights flashing. I walked toward the front window. Couldn't see much through the tinted glass, but I thought I saw movement. Someone running. I waited 5 more minutes. Then 10. The alarm kept going. I asked the waiter if someone could watch me walk out. He agreed. We stepped outside together. No one was around now. Just blinking lights from my car and the faint smell of garbage from the dumpsters. I unlocked the doors, climbed in, locked everything, and shut off the alarm. Then I drove straight to the nearest police station. I told them everything. Showed them the texts, the number, described Jennifer, gave the address of the restaurant. They took notes, nodded like they'd heard it before. One officer said, "We've seen a few like this lately. People using dating apps to set up robbery traps. Usually a woman sets the meeting, picks a dark or isolated location, then sends the guy outside where someone's waiting." He said sometimes they target people with expensive watches or nice cars. Sometimes they're just testing who's gullible enough to follow instructions. "Good thing you ran," he added. "Some don't." They took a report, but I could tell they didn't expect to catch anyone. Burner phones, deleted profiles, no name, no real info. She probably wasn't even named Jennifer. I drove home in silence, parked in a spot near my building with streetlights. Stayed in the car for a while before going in. Every part of me felt stupid, like I should have known something was off. But the truth is, she acted so normal. Too normal. Since then, I've never left a restaurant on a first date. Doesn't matter what the reason is. If someone says they need help outside or asks me to go somewhere alone, the answer's no. If something's wrong, we call for help from where we are. I don't care how nice or polite they seem. If they're real, they'll understand. If not, I'm not walking into another setup. Not again. When I was 20 and in my second year of college, I started playing this online strategy game called Kingdoms of War to relax after long classes. Most nights I'd log in around 9 and run missions until midnight. That's when I started noticing this player named Skydancer. She was on at the same times, and we kept getting matched on the same raids. After a few runs together, she messaged me directly. Said her name was Mia. She was 22 and living in California, studying graphic design. We ended up teaming up a lot. She was good at the game, knew how to coordinate moves, and always joked around in chat. I liked her energy. She told me she was blonde, blue-eyed, and sent a few pictures that matched. They looked casual, like ones you'd post on Instagram. Nothing fake-looking. We moved our conversations to WhatsApp after about a week. It started with small talk about the game, but got more personal over time. I'd complain about my roommate stealing food, or stress about upcoming exams, and she'd always respond quickly, supportive without being nosy. Our chat routine became a regular part of my day. I'd get home, drop my backpack, eat something quick, and then log in while messaging her. Mia was always there. After about 2 months, we started flirting. She'd tease me about my avatar name. I told her she looked cute in one of her photos and she replied with a heart emoji. It felt innocent at first, but gradually the messages got more suggestive. She'd say things like, "If we lived closer, I'd totally come over and help you study," followed by a winking emoji. I wasn't dating anyone, and it felt exciting, even if it was all online. We never did voice calls while playing though. Whenever I asked, she said her mic was broken or her roommates were asleep. But she did send me these short voice messages on WhatsApp, usually at night. Her voice was soft and gentle, definitely sounded like a young woman. She'd say stuff like, "Good luck on your test tomorrow," or "Sleep tight, don't dream about the kingdom too much." The way she said my name sometimes gave me chills, but in a good way. It felt personal, like we were really getting close. I asked once if she wanted to call instead of just texting. She said she didn't like how she looked on camera, that she felt awkward and hated how her face looked on video calls. I didn't press her. I know a lot of people hate being on camera. I figured it was just a personality thing. And honestly, her voice was enough. It matched her photos perfectly. I had no reason to doubt her. She spoke clearly, confidently, and everything she said lined up with the details she told me earlier. There were times I felt weird about how close we'd gotten without ever hearing her live or seeing her in real time, but I'd push that thought aside. Her messages felt real. She'd send photos of her sketches for class, drawings of figures, still lifes, and posters she was working on. I couldn't verify any of them, but they looked detailed enough. Some even had her hand in the shot, holding a pencil or stylus. Always that same pale skin, same bracelets on her wrist. I once asked for a photo of her setup, and she sent a picture of a desk by the window, tablet and all. Nothing seemed off. One evening I sent a voice message of my own. I just said, "Hey, hope your day's going okay. I'm heading to class now, but maybe we can raid later." I waited hours, but she didn't reply until nearly midnight. She responded with a voice message that sounded rushed. "Sorry, today was crazy. Talk soon?" I didn't think much of it. We all get busy. But then the gaps in response time started to stretch. Sometimes she'd disappear for a whole day and then say her phone died or she had back-to-back lectures. Again, nothing too strange. College life can be chaotic. I didn't confront her. I was still getting daily voice messages, even if short. Still sweet. Still her. One night I messaged her around 11, just a normal text. Something like, "You up for a quick run?" She didn't answer. I went to sleep. In the morning, I had a voice message waiting. "Hey, sorry I missed you last night. I had a killer migraine. Maybe tonight?" It sounded normal, but something about the tone felt slightly different. I replayed it twice. Couldn't explain what was off. Her voice was a little lower, like she was tired or had a cold. I told myself not to overthink it. Later that day, she sent me a photo of her coffee and sketchpad, captioned, "Today's workspace. Same window, same desk." But when I zoomed in, something felt strange. The drawing wasn't hers, or at least, I'd seen that same sketch somewhere online before. I opened Google image search and tried uploading it. It took a few tries, but then I found it. Same drawing, posted on an art blog by someone named Alex from Montreal, dated 2 years ago. I sat there, staring at the screen. Tried to stay calm. Maybe she just used it for reference and forgot to say. I messaged her. "Hey, cool drawing. Is that yours or a reference?" No reply for hours. That night she messaged, "It's mine." Why? Nothing else. No voice message. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled back through all the pictures she'd sent. Most had no faces, just hands or legs or desks. A few had her face, sure, but they were older, months ago. I ran 2 more of those through reverse image search. One hit. The photo was from a Pinterest board titled "Cute Blonde Aesthetic." I felt my throat tighten. I sent a message. "Can you take a picture right now holding up 3 fingers?" Read. No reply. After she ignored my request for the picture, I didn't say anything else for a day. I needed to think. But the more I thought about everything, the copied sketch, the reused photos, the delayed replies, the more I started piecing together a bigger picture. I remembered little comments Mia had made that didn't sit right. Like one time she asked if I still worked at the corner cafe, which was a weird thing to say. I never told her where I worked. It wasn't even near campus. Then another time she joked about how boring my psych professor's lectures must be, even mentioning his name, Dr. Langston. I definitely never mentioned that name. I was careful about what I shared, paranoid even. My online life was always separate from my real one. No location tags, no school name, no job info. I started checking our message history, scrolling back through hundreds of lines, and I couldn't find a single point where I gave that stuff away. It got worse when she started asking more questions. Casual, but specific. Like, "Do you still hang out with Devin and Mark?" Or, "What happened to that girl you used to sit with in biolab?" These weren't guesses. She was too accurate. She mentioned a group photo from a party I was in. A photo I'd never posted online. Just something a friend had uploaded to their private story. That's when I started thinking this person, whoever they were, either knew someone close to me, or was someone close to me. It stopped feeling like I was talking to a stranger. It felt like I was being watched. Like the whole relationship had been rehearsed in advance. I didn't tell anyone yet. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But I stopped replying as often. I needed space to figure things out. To test my theory, I came up with a fake story. I told Mia I'd bombed an exam in a European history class. I described the professor, made up a whole bit about forgetting test dates, even threw in a name, Professor Martinez. There was no truth to it. I wasn't even enrolled in a European history course. and the name belonged to one of the chem professors I passed in the hall sometimes. It was all a trap. 2 days later, I was sitting outside campus library when Ryan, a guy from my statistics class, came up and sat beside me. We weren't friends, just classmates who'd spoken once or twice. He smiled and said, "Hey man, you okay? I heard you're having a rough time in Martinez's class." My stomach dropped. I looked at him carefully. "What class?" He hesitated. "European history, right?" I didn't respond. I just stared at him. "Sorry," he added quickly. "Someone mentioned it. Thought I'd check in." I didn't say a word. I nodded like I appreciated the concern, then left. That night, I didn't message Mia. Instead, I confronted Ryan in person, caught him outside the dining hall, called him by name, and asked, "Why did you bring up Martinez?" He froze, mumbled something about overhearing it. I pressed him, harder this time. "How did you know that name?" He wouldn't look at me. Then his shoulders slumped, and he muttered, "I'm sorry, man. I didn't think it would go this far." I didn't understand right away. "What are you talking about?" He looked miserable. "I'm Mia." My brain shut down for a second. I couldn't process it. He kept talking. Said he'd started the account months ago. Said he used his cousin's photos because he didn't think I'd talk to him otherwise. Said he used a voice modulator app for the messages. He admitted that he knew I didn't remember him from freshman year, but that he'd once tried to ask me out at a party and I brushed him off. I had no memory of it. "So you decided to lie to me for months?" I said. Ryan nodded. "I just thought, if you knew the real me without judging, maybe you'd see who I really am." "You mean after pretending to be a woman and stalking my life?" He looked defensive. "I never stalked you. You knew where I worked. I saw you once and figured it out. You brought up my friends. I just asked around. It didn't matter." I felt sick. Every moment I'd trusted Mia played back in my head like a trick. Every compliment, every fake voice message, every time I said something personal, it was all fake. It wasn't just lying, it was calculated. This wasn't a joke or misunderstanding. He'd built a fake personality to manipulate me. I told him I never wanted to speak again. He begged me to just hear him out, said he had feelings for me and it wasn't all lies. He claimed he cared about me. I didn't say another word. I walked away. The next day, he sent me a message online, a long one. Said he was sorry I felt hurt, but I'd never given guys like him a chance. That I only went after arrogant jerks who treated people like crap. That he was trying to prove something. I blocked him on every platform I could think of. I also reported everything to the college counseling service. I didn't know if it would lead to anything, but I wanted it documented. For weeks after, I couldn't go back online without second-guessing who I was talking to. I stopped playing Kingdoms of War. I deleted the app. I changed all my passwords. I felt stupid, embarrassed, exposed. But mostly, I felt angry. Not just at Ryan, but at myself, for trusting someone who never existed. Now, I double-check everything. I don't open up to strangers online, no matter how real they seem. If I can't verify who someone is, I don't let them in. It's not paranoia anymore. It's protection. Because I've learned just how far someone will go if they think they deserve your attention, and what they're willing to do when you never gave it to them in the first place. When I was 24 and working night shifts as a nurse, I downloaded Hinge on a slow Tuesday morning after a long shift. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to who didn't remind me of the hospital. That's how I ended up chatting with this guy named Ryan. His profile looked normal. Pics of him on a hiking trail, one playing guitar, one with a dog. His bio said he worked in IT support, liked cooking and taking things slow. He seemed easygoing and respectful in messages, not pushy. We messaged back and forth for a few days. He'd ask about my shifts, told me about a tech issue he'd fixed at work, sent a pic of his pasta one night. Seemed harmless. By Friday, he asked if I'd like to meet in person. He suggested Riverside Park, near the shopping center, around 4 p.m. on Saturday. I liked that he picked a public place. It's open, busy, close to a bunch of restaurants in the main road. I agreed. We confirmed again Saturday morning. He even texted at 11 a.m. saying, "Looking forward to later," and sent the pin of the bench near the playground as the meeting spot. I took a long shower around 2, picked a casual sundress, threw on some sunscreen and left my place at 3:30. Traffic was light. I parked in the Target lot and walked over. It was bright out, and there were tons of people around. Families with strollers, older couples walking their dogs, teenagers skateboarding near the basketball court. It felt like the right place for a first meetup. I reached the bench around 3:55. It was one of those black iron benches with peeling paint, shaded by a tree. I sat down, texted, "Here to Ryan," and looked around. I half expected to spot him right away, like in the movies. A guy walking up smiling. But nothing. 4:00 came, then 4:10. At 4:15, still no sign of him. I checked my phone. No response. I texted, "Hey, running late?" A minute passed. No reply. I refreshed the app, checked for any unread messages. Still nothing. While I was sitting there, I noticed a guy maybe 50 feet away, standing just under a tree by the edge of the parking lot. He was wearing a faded denim jacket, black jeans, and a navy baseball cap. His head was slightly turned away, phone to his ear, but he wasn't really talking. I couldn't hear any voice or see his mouth move. What caught my eye was how often he looked over at me. Not full-on staring, but little glances every couple minutes. I figured maybe he was waiting for someone too. Maybe even his own Hinge date. But the longer I sat, the more it felt weird. His phone stayed at his ear the whole time. He didn't move or shift much. Just stood in the same spot, glancing over now and then. I called Ryan this time instead of texting, straight to voicemail. I looked around again. The people nearby were just doing their own thing. No one seemed to notice this guy. Still, I was starting to feel self-conscious. The guy shifted positions and moved a bit closer, now standing behind a trash can near the walking path. He still had his phone up, but he tilted his head like he was listening to something, eyes flicking in my direction again. I checked my messages once more. Nothing new. Ryan's profile picture was still the same, but it now showed he hadn't been active in a few hours. By 4:25, I wasn't sure what I was waiting for anymore. I wasn't panicking, but I was getting that edge, like something wasn't adding up. I looked back at the man in the jacket. He was now standing about 30 feet away, not doing anything, just standing. I stood up, slung my bag over my shoulder, and started walking slowly toward the food court area. I figured I'd grab a drink, kill time, maybe head home if Ryan didn't message. As I walked, I glanced back. Denim jacket guy had turned like he was stretching, and then started walking in the same direction I was heading. Not directly behind me, not fast. Just drifting that way. I passed a mom pushing a stroller and a group of teens sitting on the low brick wall. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out quick, hoping it was Ryan. But it wasn't. Just a spam email. I picked up my pace and entered the outdoor section of the shopping center. There's a small fountain in the middle, some benches, and a coffee place. I walked straight into the cafe and got in line. It was small inside, 3 people ahead of me. I glanced behind. The guy wasn't there. I let out a slow breath, stepped forward. When I left the cafe with my iced tea 10 minutes later, I scanned the area. Didn't see him. I started heading back to my car, took the side path instead of walking past the playground again. I was halfway across the parking lot when I noticed the same guy now leaning against a pole near the entrance ramp. He wasn't looking at me, just standing like he was waiting for someone to pick him up. But again, no phone in hand now, just standing there. I unlocked my car and got in quick, locked the doors, and sat still. He hadn't moved. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but I watched him in the rearview mirror as I pulled out. He turned slightly and looked directly at my car as I drove past. By 4:30, I accepted that Ryan wasn't coming. I stood up, dusted off the back of my dress, and slung my purse across my chest. As soon as I moved, the man in the denim jacket straightened up and took a few steps forward. I stayed facing away from him, pretending to scroll on my phone, but my eyes were watching the reflection in the dark screen. He was closing the distance slowly, but deliberately, still trying to act like he wasn't focused on me. I turned toward the path leading to the parking lot. It was lined with trees and a few lampposts. I started walking at a calm pace, trying not to draw attention. I could hear birds, a dog barking somewhere, kids laughing on the playground. Everything else felt normal, but the sound of footsteps behind me didn't fit. They were soft but steady, matching my pace. Every few seconds I glanced back. He was always about the same distance behind, never gaining, never falling behind, just matching. I paused to check my phone near a trash can. He stopped too, pretending to tie his shoe. I kept walking, faster this time. So did he. My breath started coming quicker as I reached the edge of the park. I didn't want to break into a run and make it obvious I was scared, but my legs were tense and ready. My car was in the second row of the target lot, not far from the exit. I could see it from where I stood. I checked again. He was closer now, maybe 30 feet. I pushed forward, my sandals slapping harder on the pavement. I unlocked the car with the fob in my hand, heard the chirp, saw the blink of the lights. Almost there. The footsteps behind me picked up speed. I could hear them now. Fast. Heavy. Too close. I didn't look back again. I hit the unlock button again just in case and reached for the handle. My keys almost slipped from my hand, but I got the door open and jumped in. Just as I slammed the door shut, the man reached the passenger side and pounded on the window. He was shouting something I couldn't hear, face twisted, eyes wild. He grabbed at the door handle, yanked it, then ran around to the back. I started the car with shaking hands, backed out without even looking, tires screeching as I reversed. He tried the rear passenger door next. It was locked. He pounded again, fists slamming into the glass. I threw the car into drive and floored it out of the lot. As I passed the main entrance, I caught a last glimpse of him in the mirror, standing still, hands at his sides, watching me go. He didn't chase, didn't shout, just stared. I didn't stop driving until I reached the police station 6 blocks away. I pulled into the lot and sat in the car for a minute to catch my breath. Then I walked inside and told the officer at the front desk everything. From the messages with Ryan, to the park, to the man chasing me to the car. I didn't cry or break down, just laid it all out. The officer took notes, asked for my phone, and I showed him the profile. But by then, it was gone. Ryan's profile had vanished. No trace of our chats, no name in my match history, like it had never existed. At home later, I did a reverse image search on one of the pictures Ryan had used, the one with the dog on the hiking trail. It didn't take long. The real guy was some college student from Arizona. His Instagram was full of travel pics and had nothing to do with New York. I felt sick looking at it. The entire thing had been planned. Someone had stolen this guy's pictures, made a fake profile, matched with me, chatted just long enough to get me to agree to meet, and picked a place where there were enough people to seem safe, but open enough that no one would notice if something went wrong. If I hadn't parked so close, if I'd sat there just 10 minutes longer, if I'd walked down a quieter path, I don't know what would have happened. I still use dating apps sometimes, but I only meet people in public cafes or restaurants now. Always during the day, always in crowded spots. I let someone know where I'm going, share my location, and never let my guard down. Because no matter how normal someone seems on an app, you don't know who's actually waiting for you. When I was 21 and wrapping up my junior year, I matched with this girl named Victoria on Tinder. She had a nice smile, long brown hair, and her profile said she liked documentaries and road trips. We ended up meeting at a coffee shop close to campus on a Thursday afternoon. The place was half full, low music playing, nothing fancy, but she made the time feel like it flew by. She talked a lot about journalism. She was working on a piece for her college newspaper, and somehow made it interesting. I told her about this dumb road trip I took with my roommates, and she laughed, even when the jokes didn't land. We were there for almost 2 hours. It wasn't awkward, and the conversation didn't feel forced. When we left, we didn't kiss or anything, just a hug and a "see you later" from her. I texted her the next day, saying I had a good time and would like to see her again. Nothing. I waited another day, then followed up with a casual message. Still nothing. After 4 days, I gave up and figured she had changed her mind. It wasn't unusual for people to go quiet after a first date on apps. I stopped checking for her messages and got busy with finals, late-night study sessions, and hanging out with my roommates. Then, a full week later, at exactly 11:03 p.m. on a Thursday, I got a message from her. She said she was at her friend's place way out near the edge of town. Her friend had some kind of emergency and had to leave suddenly, and now Victoria was stuck there alone without a ride. She told me her phone had been dead for several days, which was why she hadn't replied before. She apologized for disappearing and said she didn't know who else to call. She remembered I had a car and asked if I could pick her up. I didn't really know what to make of it. The timing was weird, and I had kind of written her off, but she seemed genuinely upset. Her texts had typos, like she was rushing, and she said it was cold, and she just wanted to get back to her dorm. I asked for the address, but she sent me a pin instead, just a GPS location. She explained that her friend's house was in some rural area that didn't really have street signs and could be hard to find. The coordinates led to a spot about 20 minutes outside campus, past a small industrial zone I'd never been through. I hesitated for a second. Maybe she was playing some weird game, but she followed up with another text. "Please, I'm really stuck here." I grabbed my keys, told my roommate I was going out to help someone, and left. I had an old Corolla that rattled when it hit potholes, and the roads got worse the farther I drove. At first it was just cracked asphalt, then uneven gravel. The GPS guided me past a row of shuttered shops, an abandoned gas station, and then a 2-lane road lined with trees on both sides. I slowed down and turned off the music. There were barely any lights out there. After a while, I passed a rusted mailbox in a small clearing with 2 houses set back from the road. The pin was about 100 yards past that. No other cars, no visible street lamps. I kept driving, watching the blue dot on my screen creep toward the red one. Finally, the GPS said I'd arrived. I stopped in front of a chain-link gate that was partially open. Behind it, there was a gravel driveway leading into a patch of woods. I didn't see any house lights or movement, just the narrow path and trees. I texted her. "I think I'm here." A minute passed. Then, "Yeah, I see your lights. Just pull in and I'll come out. I eased my car forward onto the gravel, the tires crunching loudly. The trees closed in a little as I went, branches low enough to brush the roof of my car. I was going slow, maybe 10 miles an hour, glancing around for a house or porch light. I expected her to be waiting by the door or something, but I didn't see anyone. The path curved slightly to the left, and that's when I saw a small single-story house. It looked old, paint peeling, no porch light. There was a pickup truck parked off to the side, half covered in a tarp. A window was lit, faintly, but no one was outside. I parked about 20 feet from the house, cut the engine, and waited. I texted again. "I'm here." No answer. I waited, staring at the screen. A full 2 minutes passed before I saw the front door open. A figure stepped out. It was hard to tell who it was at first. No porch light, just that faint glow behind them. They didn't wave. They didn't move toward the car. Just stood there. I opened my window a crack and leaned out. "Victoria?" No answer. The figure stepped back inside and closed the door. The GPS led me past the edge of campus, down a long stretch of highway that turned into narrow, cracked streets. I followed it past a few strip malls and run-down gas stations, and then into an industrial zone I didn't even know existed. Huge buildings sat far back from the road, most with broken windows and graffiti on their walls. Some looked like old storage warehouses, others like factories that had been out of business for decades. There were no other cars parked anywhere, no lights on. Just my headlights cutting through the dark and the occasional crunch of broken glass under my tires. Almost all the streetlights were dead. The ones still working flickered every few seconds like they were about to go out. The pavement was rough and full of potholes. I slowed down, checking my GPS again. The pin led to a narrow service road between two big warehouse buildings, both with rusted loading docks and boarded-up windows. I turned in carefully, tires bumping over uneven concrete. The alley was barely wide enough for my car, and on both sides were solid brick walls, maybe 3 stories high. There were no doors that looked residential, no mailbox, no apartment buzzers. I checked the GPS again. Still said I was at the right spot. I pulled forward about 10 feet, then stopped. My headlights lit up a metal staircase bolted to one side of the left building, but it looked broken and half the steps were missing. I pulled my phone out and texted her. "I think I'm here. Is this right?" She answered almost immediately. "Yes, I'm just coming out now. Thank you so much for this." The message calmed me a little, but I still felt off. I left the engine running and kept my lights on. The alley was dead quiet. No wind, no cars in the distance, not even dogs barking. Just that low electrical hum from my dashboard and the ticking of the car's clock. I waited. A minute passed, then another. I looked at the time. Almost 11:45 p.m. 5 minutes in, I finally saw something move near the warehouse on the left. At first it looked like someone opening a door near ground level, a kind of old loading dock, half sunk into the pavement. I expected to see Victoria coming out, maybe bundled in a hoodie, walking toward the car fast. But it wasn't her. 3 men came out fast, like they'd been waiting just inside. All 3 in dark hoodies or jackets, moving quick and low. One had something in his hand that glinted, like a pipe. The other 2 had bats or sticks. They were headed straight for my driver's side. They weren't yelling clearly, just making noise, but I knew exactly what was happening. I jammed the gear into reverse and floored the gas. The tires spun for half a second before catching. Then the car jerked backwards so hard my head hit the seat. They were running full speed toward me, and one of them swung something just as they passed my back bumper. I heard a loud crack, glass shattering behind me. Rear window. Another loud bang came from the side of the car. maybe the trunk or back door. I didn't stop. I kept the wheel straight and shot backward down the service road, bouncing over potholes and hearing metal scrape the undercarriage as I flew over a ridge. I saw them disappear in my rearview mirror, still chasing, but already falling behind. I didn't breathe right until I saw the yellowish lights of the main road again. I whipped the wheel left and tore out of there, nearly clipping the edge of a cement divider. I drove 30, then 40, then 60 through the dark streets until I hit the outer edge of town. Then I finally slowed down, took a shaky breath, and pulled into a gas station to check the back of my car. The rear window was spiderwebbed with cracks, glass still in place but barely. There were at least 2 dents in the trunk, one deep enough that it caught the light like a wound. I didn't wait around. I got back in and drove straight to campus. When I got to the parking lot near my dorm, I sat in the car for a while, letting the engine idle while I stared at the messages on my phone. I opened Tinder, clicked on Victoria's name. Gone. Not unmatched. Her whole profile was gone. I checked my messages. My texts to her were still there, but I couldn't tap her contact picture anymore. I called her number. 1 ring, then voicemail. I tried again. This time, it said the number was no longer in service. I walked to my room and told my RA, who connected me to campus security. After a short report, they told me to call the local police. The officer I spoke with came out to meet me in the lobby. He looked tired, like it wasn't his first time hearing something like this. I showed him the texts, the GPS pin, the damage to my car. He nodded slowly and said, "We've had a few like this. It's a bait setup. Fake dating profiles, real people behind them, usually working in groups. They wait for someone to show up, then try to rob them." I asked if anyone else had been hurt. "Some didn't get away," he said. "Usually they're after your phone, wallet, sometimes the car. If you resist or panic, it can go worse." They took my statement and told me they'd add it to the file. Said they'd investigate, but these guys usually dump the phones and close the accounts right after. I paid out of pocket for the rear window. $200 with labor. The dents were minor, but still noticeable. I didn't fix them. I haven't used a dating app since. I don't meet strangers at night anymore. And I never drive into any place without street signs or lights, no matter how urgent the message sounds. Not every red flag is easy to spot. Some only make sense when you're staring at a shattered rear window and a GPS pin in the middle of nowhere. When I was 26, working as a graphic designer in Portland, I decided to try Tinder again after splitting up with my ex. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just maybe to meet someone normal and see how it went. After a few days of swiping, I matched with Brad. He was 29, worked in marketing, and had a clean, put-together look in his photos. Button-up shirts, coffee shops, hiking trails. Our chat lasted about a week. He was polite, a little funny, and didn't come on too strong. We talked about local food spots, favorite shows, and what we did for work. I mentioned that I liked going to Blue Star Coffee during lunch breaks, because it was just a few blocks from my office and always busy. Brad suggested meeting there on a Thursday around noon. I agreed. A public spot in broad daylight seemed like the best way to go, especially after a few awkward first dates in quieter places. That Wednesday night, I didn't feel nervous, just hopeful. I wore a navy blue dress, nothing fancy, and planned to walk over during my lunch hour. The weather was typical for April in Portland, overcast, but dry. Everything about it felt normal, like just another lunch break, except I was finally going to meet someone who seemed halfway decent. I got there right on time, around 12:05. Brad was already inside, sitting at a corner table near the window. He looked just like his pictures. Average build, clean-shaven, dark hair, plaid shirt. He smiled and waved as soon as he saw me. I smiled back, a little relieved already. I'd been catfished before, so just having him look like his photos felt like a win. On the table was a coffee waiting for me. He said, "I figured you'd want a cold brew with oat milk and 2 shots. Hope I got that right." It caught me off guard because I never told him that. I blinked, paused, then said something like, "That's really specific. Did I mention that?" He just laughed and said, "You look like someone who needs the extra caffeine." His smile stayed on his face, but he didn't laugh like it was a joke. He just looked at me, holding eye contact longer than I expected. I laughed awkwardly, took a sip. It was exactly how I ordered it every day, and sat down. We talked about work first. He asked where my office was, and I pointed vaguely out the window toward the general area. Then he asked what time I usually got in and when I left. I answered vaguely again, saying it changed depending on the day. He nodded slowly, like he was writing it down in his head. I tried to shift the topic to weekend stuff. Did he hike often? Where was that trail in his photo? But he brought it back. "So you walk here most days? Same route?" I gave a tight smile and said, "Downtown isn't that big." I left it at that. He didn't seem to notice I was being vague. He leaned forward, still holding eye contact. "You carry a bag or just your phone?" he asked. I answered without thinking. Usually just my keys and phone, then mentally kicked myself. Why did he need to know that? I tried again to move the conversation, asked him how long he'd lived in Portland. 3 years, he said, eyes still fixed on me. I like watching people. Everyone's got patterns. I bet you pass the same people every morning and don't even notice. I stared at him, trying to smile, not sure how to respond. He kept talking. Like that barista over there. She probably knows exactly what time you come in. I looked over. The girl behind the counter was making a drink, not paying attention to us. Brad sipped his coffee, watching her. People think they're unpredictable, but they're not, he said, his voice lower. I could probably guess your whole day. I let out a small laugh, trying to keep it light. That sounds like something a stalker would say. He didn't laugh. He just smiled at me again and leaned back in his chair. I checked my phone, pretending to look at a text. I've got to be back soon, I said, even though I still had time. Brad nodded slowly, like he expected it. I'll walk you back, he said. Not, do you want me to, or, if you'd like. Just a statement. I hesitated, then said, no need. I've got a call coming in. He stood up anyway. I'll just walk a bit with you. I didn't argue. I didn't want to make a scene or look paranoid in a public place, especially when he hadn't technically done anything wrong. He followed me out, keeping pace with me, silent for half a block. Then he started talking again. You know, I almost didn't swipe right, he said. Your pictures didn't really show your height. I didn't respond. We passed a small bookstore, and I glanced inside, wondering if I should duck in and pretend I had an errand. You take 10th Street, right? He asked. That's the fastest way. I looked at him quickly, then back at the sidewalk. Not always, I said. Depends on traffic. My voice sounded too flat. We got to the corner near my office building, and I stopped. Well, this is me, I said. He looked up at the glass doors, then back at me. Nice building, he said. You on the 4th floor? I didn't answer. I gave a tight smile and said, I'll talk to you later. Yeah, he said, still standing there. I went inside and didn't look back. Brad's smile didn't change as he started talking about his ex-girlfriend. He said her name was Sarah and talked about her like she was still in his life. He described how he used to show up outside her office to surprise her with coffee and snacks. At first, it sounded like typical ex stuff, until he mentioned that he always knew where she was because they had shared locations on an app, and he never turned it off, even after they broke up. I tried to keep my face still while he continued, laughing as he said he used to park down the street from her apartment, just to make sure she got in okay. That's kind of a lot, I said carefully. It's called caring, he replied. Nobody watches out for people anymore. Then he casually dropped that he had found my Instagram. He said we had mutual friends, so it was easy. He told me he liked the pictures of my trip to Mount Hood, and that I looked cute in the one where I was drinking from that silver travel mug. My stomach sank. I hadn't posted that photo on any dating profile. Then he said my cat looked like he had a lot of personality. That really hit. I never mentioned my cat. I never mentioned I had one. How did you know I had a cat? I asked. You posted him a few times, he said. And your captions were funny. Monday face and I live with a gremlin. He's orange, right? I nodded slowly, trying to keep my breath steady. I felt like I was shrinking into my chair. He'd been studying me, maybe even before we matched. I kept my hands under the table to hide that they were shaking. He was still smiling, still talking, like nothing he said was strange. I pretended to glance at my phone and said I needed to get back to the office, even though it wasn't time yet. He offered to walk with me again, but I said no firmly. He didn't seem upset, just said, "Maybe later then." As I stood up, he did too. "One more thing," he said, leaning across the table. "You shouldn't leave your curtains open at night. That lamp by your couch makes a reflection in the window, and it's kind of blinding." I froze. "I just drove by last night to see where you lived," he added quickly, like that made it better. "It's nothing weird. I just wanted to picture where you were when we talked." I didn't say anything. I backed away from the table and moved toward the exit. I could feel his eyes on me the whole way out. I didn't turn around until I got to the door, and when I did, he was still standing there, watching. The second I stepped outside, I pulled my phone from my pocket and texted my coworker to say I was coming back early. Then I walked as fast as I could. I didn't care if it looked suspicious or rude. My head was down, but I checked behind me every half block. I didn't see him, but that didn't calm me down. Every streetlight, every parked car felt like it was hiding something. When I finally made it to my building, I used my keycard so fast I almost dropped it. Inside, I went straight to the bathroom and locked the door, just to breathe. My phone buzzed while I was still in the stall. It was a text from Brad. Long, rambling. He talked about how special our connection felt, how refreshing it was to meet someone who got him. He said he didn't want to play games and suggested we skip the wait and meet at my place. He said he remembered my apartment had the brick pattern on the left side and the mailboxes by the elevator. He described a broken light near the back parking lot and the brown mat outside my door. I froze. There's no way he saw all that just by driving by. I didn't reply. I blocked his number. Then I opened every app we had chatted on, Tinder, Instagram, even LinkedIn, and blocked him there too. I called my building manager and asked how to change my access code for the front door. He said he'd put in the request immediately. I didn't explain why. I just said it was urgent. That night, I slept with the couch pushed against my front door. I kept the TV on and the curtains closed. I told two of my closest friends and sent them his photos just in case. They offered to stay over, but I said I'd be okay. I wasn't. For weeks I flinched when my phone buzzed. I took different routes to work. I stopped going to Blue Star and started using a different coffee shop halfway across town. I changed my social media to private and deleted every old post that mentioned anything about where I lived or worked. He never contacted me again. I never saw him outside my building or near my office. But every time I heard someone walking too close behind me or saw a parked car idling at the corner, I felt like it could be him. I kept my curtains closed for months. I added a second lock to my door. Sometimes I think back to that first week of chatting, how easy it felt. Now I wonder if he was already watching me before we matched. Maybe matching on Tinder wasn't the beginning. Maybe it was just the part where he let me know he was there. It happened last spring, right around mid-March, when I was in my second year at State University. I lived in Palmer Hall, one of the older dorm buildings tucked behind the campus bookstore. My roommate Jessica and I had a decent setup: bunked beds, a mini fridge, and a third-hand rug she'd brought from home. We weren't super close, but she was easy to live with, and we had a good system going. I'd been on Tinder for a couple months at that point, mostly just chatting. I never took it too seriously. Lots of college guys just wanted quick hookups or sent the same lazy hey messages. But Marcus stood out. He was 24, said he worked in software support for a company in town, and his texts were thoughtful. He asked what I wanted to do after graduation, asked about classes, even gave podcast recommendations. He didn't rush anything, and I liked that. After 2 weeks of texting, he asked if I wanted to meet for dinner. Not coffee, not lunch between classes, dinner. At Romano's Steakhouse, which was off campus in one of the business plazas near the highway. It was nicer than anywhere I'd been with a guy before. Jessica raised an eyebrow when I told her, half joking that he was either classy or a weirdo. I laughed it off. Honestly, I was flattered. Most guys my age aimed low effort. I wore a black top I'd been saving for something nice, straightened my hair, and borrowed Jessica's better pair of heels. She even let me use her perfume, which was kind of her because she's usually weird about sharing stuff like that. I remember checking my phone twice for his text when I was standing by the dorm's side door. He was exactly on time. Marcus pulled up in a silver Civic, clean but not flashy. He had this calm energy, tall, clean-cut, polite. Opened the passenger door for me. We made easy small talk during the short drive. I noticed he didn't play music. Just silence, which felt a little stiff. But I figured maybe he was trying to focus on conversation. Romano's was quiet that night. Dim lighting, wood booths, low hum of jazz overhead. He complimented my outfit and pulled out my chair, which nobody ever did. Over appetizers, we talked about majors, jobs, and how weird it was that COVID had thrown off our freshman year. He told me about his job helping clients set up systems for remote work. It sounded kind of boring, but he made it sound smart, confident, but not braggy. At some point during the meal, he asked where I lived on campus. I didn't think much of it and said Palmer Hall. He smiled and asked what floor I was on. I hesitated for a second but just said, "Second." He nodded, then asked if I had a roommate. I said yes and gave Jessica's name. He kept smiling, not in a creepy way, just steady. But then he asked what side of the building we were on, west or east. I didn't even know how to answer that. I said I wasn't sure, which was true. He chuckled and said, "Oh, I thought you'd know. Isn't your window facing the football field?" I blinked. That was right. I asked how he knew. He brushed it off and said, "Just a guess." I didn't know what to say to that. From there, he kept circling back to my dorm. Asked how strict the RAs were, if visitors had to check in, If doors locked automatically, it started to feel weird. I gave shorter answers and tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. I mentioned a professor I liked, a project I was working on, but he just nodded and returned to more personal stuff. What time I usually got back to my room, if I ever stayed at the library late, how often I went home on weekends. The whole time, he never broke eye contact. Not in an aggressive way, just fixed, like he was cataloging everything I said. His smile didn't change, and his tone stayed soft and friendly. That made it harder to call out. I told myself maybe he was just awkward. Maybe he didn't realize he was pushing boundaries. When the check came, he paid without blinking. I thanked him, said it was really nice of him. He nodded and said, "Yeah, I wanted to do something special." He offered to drive me back, and I didn't want to seem rude, so I said okay. In the car, he asked if I wanted to stop by his place. I said I had to finish a paper. He laughed and said, "Another time then." But his tone felt too knowing. As we pulled up in front of Palmer Hall, I reached for the door handle. He leaned a bit closer and said, "So, which side's your room on again?" I paused. "I don't really know directions," I said. "Left side when you come in, I guess." He smiled again and said, "Cool. Second floor, left side." I stepped out and closed the door gently. He waited a moment, then drove off. I didn't go inside right away. I stood by the brick wall near the bike rack, pretending to look at my phone, and watched his taillights disappear. During dessert, the questions got sharper. Marcus leaned forward a bit, his voice soft, still polite. But the things he was asking made me feel tense. He wanted to know what time I usually came back from class each day, which door I used to get in, if I studied in the dorm or went to the library. I answered vaguely at first, saying it changed depending on the day. He didn't drop it. He asked again, more specifically. Like, around 7 most nights, or later. I said later. He asked if I usually walked back alone. When I asked why he needed all that, he shrugged and said, "Just curious. I didn't get the whole campus experience. I went to a commuter school." He smiled like it was nothing. Then he joked, at least it sounded like a joke, about sneaking in sometime and surprising me. "Maybe I'll slip past the desk one night," he said, grinning. "Bet your RA wouldn't even notice." I forced a laugh but kept my eyes on the check. I was done. He asked if my roommate was around much. I said not really. Then he asked if Jessica worked evenings. That one felt too specific. I lied and said she was usually in the room studying all night. By that point, I was making up everything. I told him we were in the West Wing when we were actually in the East. I told him I used the front entrance, but I almost always used the side stairs. I even gave a fake dorm number when he pressed for it, acting like I thought he was joking. He just smiled and nodded. I couldn't read his face anymore. It was too still. When we left, I didn't hug him goodbye. Just said thanks and walked away fast. That night, after I got back to Palmer, I sent Jessica a long text about the date. I told her I wasn't in danger, but that he was intense and had asked a lot of weird questions. She was already asleep when I sent it, and I didn't feel like waking her. I stayed up for a while scrolling through Instagram, then finally turned the lights off around midnight. I didn't lock the bedroom door because we never did, just the main one at the end of the hall that locked automatically. Around 3 a.m., I woke up. Not from a dream, just something. It was quiet, but I thought I heard a soft knock. Not loud, not rushed. Almost like someone tapping with their knuckles. I waited. It came again. Same soft rhythm. I sat up, listened. It wasn't coming from the main hallway. It was the door right outside our room. I got out of bed and looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. but the knocking kept going, faint and measured. I didn't move. After a minute, it stopped. I held my breath. Then I heard steps, soft ones, going down the hallway. I waited. 5 minutes later, the knocking started again. I moved to the window and pulled the blinds just a little. Down on the sidewalk below, someone was pacing near the bushes. Too dark to see clearly at first, but when they stepped under the lamppost, I saw him. Marcus. He looked up once, then moved fast around the corner of the building. I froze. He shouldn't have known where I lived. I never told him the real wing, floor, or room number. My heart was thudding so loud I felt it in my ears. I picked up my phone and called campus security. Then, without waiting, I stood near the door and said loudly, "I'm calling security right now." I tried to sound steady, but my voice cracked. The knocking stopped. I didn't hear more footsteps, but I stayed standing until my legs hurt. I watched the window and door until the sun came up. I didn't sleep. By morning, Jessica had read my messages and freaked out when I told her what happened. I went straight to the campus security office after my first class. I told them everything. His name, what he looked like, the car, even the fake info I gave him. They said they'd check the cameras and see if he had shown up at the entrance. Later that day, they called me back. He had. The cameras showed Marcus walking up to the dorm entrance around 2:30 a.m. He didn't buzz anyone. Instead, he waited nearby until a group of students came in, then slipped in behind them before the door shut. No key card. He didn't belong in the building. Once inside, the footage showed him walking slowly down each hallway, stopping at almost every door to read the nameplates next to them. My name was on ours, printed on a slip of paper like most people had. He must have gone floor by floor until he saw it. He'd been inside for over an hour. The officers said he didn't break any laws technically, but they'd issue a trespass notice to keep him off campus. They asked if I wanted to press anything further. I didn't know what to say. I just wanted him gone. I blocked Marcus on every app, deleted his contact, and told my RA everything. Jessica and I started locking our room door every night. I switched dorms the next semester, moved to a building with no nameplates and a stricter check-in system. I never saw Marcus again. Sometimes I still think about how little I gave him, just a dorm name. He put the rest together by watching, listening, asking small questions I didn't realize were part of something bigger. I don't know if he'd been planning that from the start or just became fixated later. Maybe he followed me back that night after the date, or maybe he guessed and got lucky. Either way, it stuck with me. People say to be careful online. I was. I never sent my location, never gave my schedule. But he didn't need any of that. He just watched, asked, waited, and that was enough.